is Rebekah Britton, and she's a senior, and she's about to graduate this semester. However, not in photography. It will be in ceramics. But she was a photography concentration for several years, right? So anyway, even though she's doing ceramics this last year, she approached me last year and asked if she could do an independent study. She had this project that was near and dear to her heart, and so we worked together, and she made this beautiful book. So I think you're really going to enjoy seeing it. Thank you.
Up is forward, down is backwards, right?
Yes.
Okay. And like she said, I'm presenting the book. I found that what a wonderful memory, a self-realization of the importance of story preservation.
Maybe it's the other way.
There we go, okay. Storytelling has been around since the beginning of language, whether through words, written text, or images. These means of communication have allowed listeners an intimate relationship with the teller, both physically and emotionally. It allows the teller to breathe life into a maybe otherwise mundane story and show vivid imagery, along with the occasional creative embellishments. Because of its intimacy, people are able to come together and develop a deeper connection and better understanding of each other through these stories and physical experiences. These stories and experiences, no matter how seemingly insignificant, have shaped generations and society as a whole. With the advancement of technology in communication, such as typing, voice-to-text, recordings, people may be inclined to believe that some physical experiences and forms of storytelling are outdated, boring, or no longer relevant. However, I would like everyone to take a moment and imagine a time in your life, maybe from your childhood. Remember a vibrant conversation in the kitchen with your grandmother. She's baking her famous Christmas cookies, and it seems the recipe sits on the counter for decoration as she measures ingredients without even glancing. Or even laughing on your kitchen floor at 3 a.m. with your best friend after a night out. A long car ride, screaming the top 40 hits of the summer. Or your dad coming to your rescue while you sit on the side of the road with a flat tire. Now, imagine those experiences dwindling away or disappearing completely. Vibrant conversation is replaced with silence, as your grandmother checks the recipe she's made hundreds of times for the 6th time in a row. You realize, but she looks at the recipe as if it's new every time. The warmth that once filled that spot in your kitchen floor is empty. You never knew how to feel that cold. The top 40 hits with the windows down, the sound of traffic, and monotone radio host. AAA now replaces your dad's home phone number. Whether it be a side effect of death or disease, memories will change, dwindle, and disappear. Some people are fortunate enough to have the realization this is possible, and it will happen. Fortunately, I did. Unfortunately, I was too late. My grandfather got diagnosed with dementia about 3 years ago, although looking back, the signs were pretty clear beforehand. The dozens of stories he used to tell with vivid imagery soon became a couple of the same anecdotes, with only major points. Intelligent, stimulating conversation shifted to simple questions. Are you in school? How's school? What grade are you in? Are you married? How old are you? Repeat. One day, during the 3rd round of answering how old I was, I came to the haunting realization that those memories were gone, forever. There was no record except for a couple of pictures in newspapers. My grandmother and dad knew some of them, sure, but my grandfather could never tell them again. I would never hear the horn sound he made while driving out Buffalo at Fort Huachuca, or his laughter after telling the story of accidentally jumping into a pigsty and being hosed out by a stranger when he was 10, or the inflection of his voice and the look in his eyes people get when they're telling you something really important, while he gave me the best advice. Use your eyes, ears, and mouth proportionately. It was then I decided I could not let this happen to my grandmother. I could not allow her stories to suffer the same fate. As much as I wish it could be, she's not going to be around to tell stories in person forever. Therefore, I created this handmade book called What a Wonderful Memory. And although making an audio recording would be beneficial to capture the sound of her voice, I wanted to construct a way to convey her stories that involved a more tactile and immediate experience. Something that could convey the intimacy of storytelling and conversation, while also keeping a record to be passed to generations. To create this experience, I had to figure out how to transcribe and personify the basic elements of communication I shared with my grandmother. How could I personalize her stories through text? How could I replay memories with still pictures? How could I share her authentic, individual experiences in her absence? Because I wanted to create an immersive piece, I felt that the cover needed to be aesthetically pleasing and have a tactile element, and while complementing the individuality of the inside pages. I wanted to create a cover that was sturdy enough to hold up, but not too rigid that it did not feel or handle well, as this was going to be the first thing people touched and saw. The white handmade papers, soft texture, complemented this and allowed the cover to be inviting and interesting, but not distracting. Because most of the internal parts of the book are busy and stimulating, I wanted to build the eye up to it, using this opening page as an introduction to color and text. The book then opens to the first layout. The pictures I used were copies of her original photographs done in a silver gelatin process in the dark room. I wanted to create photographs using a process that was relevant to the time in which she lived. I then altered the pictures with paint, thread, deconstruction, and alternative presentations. Similar to developing the pictures in a style relevant to her time, I also wanted to present them. I used envelopes to give the reader the experience of discovery and the gift of surprise one will get from receiving and opening a letter. This helps create an experience for multiple senses as the reader can see, touch, move, and interact with the images. To help create a different experience per page, I utilized a variety of papers such as mulberry, an Arches printmaking paper, and a cotton rag paper. The papers were then torn to size to add depth and an antique quality to the pages. The papers were then stained with the two things you can always find in her kitchen: lifted nice tea bags and red wine. Because of the variety of the papers, the stains took differently to the fibers and helped create the sense that each page represented an individual experience, and by flipping the page, you were immersed into another. I also used scrap paper, like this butcher paper, to add depth to the book as you can see in this one. Since the story is about her transplanting the same rose bush during her many moves, I used live rose petals as the background to add another layer of interaction before opening the envelope. For this page, I felt imagery played an important role. Because this page is an introduction to her marriage to my grandfather, I wanted to create an image that showed the happiness of their new marriage, but also conveyed the positives and negatives of marriage and relationships, as you can see in the picture on the left. I've always felt that one of the only things as individual as a fingerprint is handwriting. Therefore, I asked my grandmother to write stories and memories. They were written on plain notebook paper, scanned into Photoshop, then arranged into a layout to allow space for photos and interactive pieces, then printed on the paper. Because this book is inspired by my grandfather, I wanted to put elements of him in there, like this copy of a newsletter mentioning him as part of the success of an Apollo mission. On this page, I wanted to create the feeling of discovery without the continuing use of envelopes, similar to the thrill of turning the page on your favorite story. I inserted and mounted the pictures in a way that allowed them to move on a fixed plane. Flipping the pictures opens up more information in the story and simulates the feeling of communication. I used the last of the book to create pockets and blank pages for additional stories and experiences so I can continually expand and grow this experience. Finally, I bound the book together with a Coptic chain stitch. I chose to keep the binding open to show the handmade quality of the stitching. By using the stitch and open binding, it allows the book to lay perfectly flat so readers can view the layouts as a whole spread out on the table without the book closing in on itself, closing a door on that adventure and abrasively halting the immersive quality of the book. Storytelling can allow us to find meaning and a deeper connection to humanity. In this age of technology where utilizing temporary modes of communication is common, I believe it is important to remember to record important events and people in our lives in a more permanent fashion. By creating this book, I aim to preserve these precious memories and people before they disappear. Thank you.